What kind of special tools? Just take a
You
screwdriver.
didn't want users to be able to open it. You need special tools.
All right, folks, we are here with Artyom Romanenko, who is a product manager for KeenTools, and he is joining us long distance here from St. Petersburg, Russia. So, as you guys know, I'm in Indiana, in the States, and it's about 7 a.m., and I'm not sure what time is it out there, sir?
It's 2 p.m. Yeah, it's 2 p.m. And we are going to improvise because I've been told that we have to start at 3 p.m. our time. So, yeah, this podcast will be a little bit improvisational. I hope that's okay.
Well, thanks for coming on, and we have you on screen share right now, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at a demonstration of some of your tools that you guys use in Nuke. And did you want to give a little bit of background on your company and the product itself?
Okay, yeah, it all started with Roman, our founder. And he was working in VFX for quite a long time before. It was around 2010 or something. And then he needed to complete a couple of shots where he needed to track some geometry, and he had some thoughts back then. And later he started working at a software company, large software company where he got some people on internships, and then he tried to merge his passion for VFX and his developer. A developer came to him for an internship, and he offered him a project of basically it was PinTool. And then the internship was done, and then they decided to productize it and start selling it. Not selling it back then, but just make a product. And so PinTool appeared. Then they created Geotracker based on PinTool. So they took PinTool and added tracking abilities, and that's how it started. Then people realized that. We realized that what you often need to track in cinema is people faces and heads, and people try to track them all with Geotracker, but it was probably not the best approach. So yeah, that's how FaceBuilder and FaceTracker appeared. So with FaceBuilder you can create model using just a couple of reference photographs, and then you can track the facial deformations with FaceTracker. And then as we realized that there's a huge demand for FaceBuilder in 3D area, not the VFX area, but 3D modelers and those guys, we tried to start our expansion to other hosts with Blender. So we created FaceBuilder for Blender because Blender is free and it has got really cool in latest versions. So yeah, it was easy choice for us to go there. Yeah, and kind of
slowly getting into Blender over here, even at the university that I'm at. I used to be a character artist for NetherRealm, and I can say that just by seeing what blows my mind is how simplistic you guys made a way of making a model based on reference photography. It's just a matter of pulling a couple of points, and I'm referring to your FaceBuilder tool, and I could see how that could be really invaluable to both Blender and also for Nuke. But what kind of takes it another level is your FaceTracker tools inside of Nuke, which again I got a chance to play with a little bit, but again you're going to give a demo, so I'm not going to kind of spoil it for everybody. But is that cool if you can kind of give us an introduction to those tools?
Yeah, sure. So here's our footage, here's our camera, and here's our 3D model. It's a 3D scan. And we create PinTool node. we connect Geotracker, or geometry. We connect BG input to the footage and camera input to the camera, obviously. And what we have here in, let's see the second viewer, and let's move it here. So here we see it in 3D. And here we see the 2D projection. And what happens, here's our camera, here's our model. Yes, here's our model. And when I press the center Geo button here, it's a button of pin tool, you can see this model. This is original model. You can see the model is being translated here. So once again, when I press it, it's being translated. Here's the camera. It looks into the model. And when I will drag the pins, you create pins here on the model, like those red dots.
The center geo basically frames up whatever model you have through a camera, basically.
Yeah, it places it in the center of the frame, according to the camera. And then we drag it here. Oops. You see it's like it's guessing the position when you move the pins, and it's like that. I think, yeah. So yeah, we placed the model. Basically, we created a transform geo node that translates this model. You can see this is like we can export even transform geo node from pin tool and from all other our nodes. We can export this transform geo, and if we apply, for example, this transform geo node to the same model, we see the same position of this head here. So it's basically the same. So you can when you drag pins, you create keyframes, as you can see here, and you can create a keyframe, for example, here, and drag it here and here, and then the position will be interpolated. But so using pin tool, it's our free node, by the way. You don't need to buy a license for it. You can do some simple tracking. If there's some smooth motion, you can create keyframes and track like that. But it's doesn't work all the time. So we have Geotracker, and Geotracker is basically the same pin tool. So we create Geotracker. We connected this in the same way: geometry, camera, and background. I mean the footage to the BG input. And once again, we can go to the first frame, press enter Geo button, do the same thing, place in the model. We are creating the first keyframe now. And yeah, and now we can press this track button here. But before we can track anything, we need to pre-analyze the footage. We split this process and made it dedicated because it takes, we wanted to make tracking real time, or almost real time. I think as much real time as possible. So to not analyze the footage all the time while you're tracking, we split this process so you can prepare your shots, using some pipeline stuff. So when a compositor starts to work, he has footage, or she has the footage, the tracking, the pre-analysis data, and the script, Nuke script line in there and being set up. I've done pre-analyzing before, so I can just put this here. And now let's start tracking. And now we see it being tracked. And it feels...
You had to input some file in order to analyze, or...
Yeah, you specify the path here. When you don't have this file and you want to start tracking, you press this analyze button. But you can do this in background, even before you open the script, it can be done in the background. So
You have your camera that's 3D tracked. It's got data of motion, whether translation and rotation. And then you have a piece of geo that you set up, and then you have your original footage.
yeah, you can use the tracked camera, but in this case, camera is not tracked. It's just the what we use here is the camera settings. We need focal length, we need the sensor size, and that's basically it. If you don't have this information, if you don't know how the shot was shot with what camera, you can use focal length estimation. We can estimate fixed focal length, like if you know that the shot was shot on the fixed length. And if you know that if the focal length is changing during the motion in the shot, you can use the varying focal length, and it will be estimated during tracking. So the zoom action will be estimated while tracking. If you choose the fixed focal length, then every time you set up a keyframe, the focal length will be estimated, and the more keyframes you have, the better the estimation will be. And then if you like here on the results tab, you can export different things. You can export transform geo node from that will be having these transformations like translate and rotation. And you can export camera node, which will be estimated camera. If we have the connected camera here. So if I press this button here, export the camera, you'll see this message that you already have the camera, just use this camera. But you can export tracked camera, and tracked camera is a special thing. It will be linked to this camera, so it will have the settings of that camera, and it will be linked to Geotracker.
So behind the scenes, it's actually giving you a camera track as well?
Yeah, exactly. And the camera track works in the way that the model stays in 0 point, and camera moves around it. So as you can see, if we open this model, yeah. So here's you can see how model moves relative to the camera in 0, and how camera moves relative to the model in 0.
Now I'm assuming this camera, the footage itself, would have to be undistorted?
It should be undistorted, but usually that's not a big problem if you don't have the grid and you cannot undistort the footage, because usually action happens in the center area, and it's not that distorted. Distortions happen on the edge of the frame usually. So usually it's okay if you I didn't undistort this footage here, but it works pretty well. But in the perfect case, you want to undistort your footage, of course, because Geotracker, PinTool, FaceBuilder, FaceTracker, they all expect the perfect flat picture. Yeah. And that's it. That's a Geotracker. You can when you track your model and see, for example, here it goes away slightly. You can create another pin and fix it. Fix the position. You're creating another keyframe here, and after creating this keyframe, you can you see, model jumps here, and you don't want this jump here. So you press refine button. You can perhaps let's.
So really, you've only set 3 keyframes, and that thing has pretty much stuck on there pretty well.
It's 2 keyframes now. The first keyframe here, and now the second keyframe here. And if we press this refine button, yeah, it will use this keyframe, and this keyfame tracks. It will track forwards and backwards, and it will merge 2 tracks into one perfect one. Like this one, and then you can continue tracking from this keyframe because it's ideal, at least for
This is such this is the creepiest scene I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, those are creepiest creatures, and yeah, let's just create here. You keep keyframe here, so we fix it here, and kind of that. and then we press refine again. It will happen between just the keyframes, and yeah, I'd say we have a perfect track. Now here it stacks a little bit, but yeah.
It definitely speeds up the workflow, not just for cleanup, but also for camera tracking, you know.
Yeah, you can use Geotracker for camera tracking, but you have to keep in mind that the object should take a significant space in the frame, because the object is too small. The camera track won't be like
it won't work if the
really
actor
precise.
goes off the shot, off the frame, basically, is what you're.
Yeah, it should be static in the frame and should take the most part of the frame, like the significant part of the frame. So the track will be.
It's kind of rethinking the way you do tracking. You know what I mean? Like you're inversing an object track. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing. That's it with Geotracker. You can use like smoothing here if you want. If you think that track is a little bit jittering, like you can see in curve editor here. It's so slow. I think it's because of the. Here it's quite smooth, but sometimes you can see some like jumps here. Then you can use smoothing parameters like along different axes, and you can smooth rotation. You can use translation of Z and XY, and you can smooth the focal length estimation. And the important thing about it is that you need to, like, it's happening during tracking. So if I change smoothing here now, and I already have the track here, and I don't want to retrack, I can change the parameter and press refine button. It will be the smoothing settings will be taken into account.
So it doesn't get taken into account until you hit the refine button.
Yeah. Track and refine and are basically the same action. Just using like tracking is using single keyframe, so it just goes forward or backwards using the buttons. And refine is using two keyframes. It tracks backwards, then it tracks forwards, and then it merges two tracks. Like in a kind of smart way. Then you can use user tracks that. Usually you don't need to use user tracks because we get as much information from the shot as possible. But if you think that you want to create a tracker, and for example you want to add a track, I don't know, track the nose here, and for example, like some significant point that you can track easily with Nuke tracker, you can later import this tracker here. Like you press this import tracks button from tracker 1, and here is the track, and you will see this track here as this cross. This what's the color? Like this cross will be shown, and it will be like taken as a perfect feature that Geotracker will rely on it, like it's perfect, so it should be perfect. Yeah, and then you can export different things like transform geo, camera, tracked camera, and what else? Yeah, I think that's it with Geotracker.
It's amazingly simple.
Yeah. That's right. Like it's what we care about. Like make things as simple as possible. So like you get your job done in most simple way, as like how it's possible. Yeah, so let's jump to FaceBuilder maybe. So we have, when you work with FaceBuilder, what you need is, again, your photographs or a footage. You can use a footage as well, like with the video file if you don't have reference photographs. And you need camera settings, but you can estimate camera settings. You load pictures with read node. It happens like that. You open your, like, you can see the pictures, like 1, 2, 3, 5. You load them as a sequence. And here's the sequence, like. In a perfect case, you want to reference photographs with neutral face expression. And yeah, so like usually I ask people to close their eyes, imagine they are sleeping, then slowly open their eyes and just stay still. And when you take photographs from those angles, you want photographs like from the bottom, from the top, and it's not good. It's not a good idea to ask people to like move their head in any way. It's better because you will get different like geometry, like distortion, like muscles will be strained here and here, and it's not what you want. So it's better to run around the person and take pictures. And yeah, here, and then let's start from scratch with those. Like we create FaceBuilder node. We connect the photograph to the BG input and camera to the camera input. And yeah, and we have another text input. It's used for, I'll take it later. So yeah, we start again with center Geo Button. It does the same thing. It places the 3D model in 3D space into the camera projection, like into this view of the camera. So, and here you can see the texture, like the ears and the brows and the eyes and nose and mouth are being highlighted. You can switch it off if you don't want it, like textured wireframe here, the checkbox. And you can load your custom texture here using this texture input, just in case you want like to make it more visible. Again, we have the focal length estimation here. If you don't know the camera settings, you can take the camera settings from the camera node. You can estimate the fixed focal length, and you can estimate the varying focal length if you have if you have shots from different cameras. But it's not a good case because usually it's better to either you know something or you have photographs taken from one single camera with one single focal length. And so you just
so when you hit the button center geo, it automatically created a default mesh.
No, the mesh is being created as you create the node. It's here in 3D. It's already here. Yeah, you just, let's see.
Oh, the minute the second you create it, it gives you the default mesh. Okay.
Yeah, you have this model. And again, let's connect everything here. And let's create another viewer. So it's, and where's the, yeah, it's here. And here's our 3D, and here's, and again we can see the camera. Yeah, no, the camera is here. And when we press the center Geo button, and the model is being translated, but we are not like putting this model translated to the output if you don't check this, click this checkbox here, because when you connect this node to FaceTracker, you want this model to be placed in 0 point. But if you want to translate this geometry, like how it stands in the front of the camera, you can like use this checkbox here, or you can export the transform geo node. It will be linked, connected here, and you can see it being translated. So everything you like. Every keyframe you create here in FaceBuilder will be passed to this linked node. So you will see this here in Transform Geo. Yeah.
When you're building it in FaceBuilder, you want to have that check marked on. But when you're ready to take this model in and do what we did,
no, you don't need it. Just if you want to see it being translated in 3D, then you want this check mark. Yeah, just to see it. But
we're really looking at the first step, and what we just saw previous was like the second step, because you first build the model, and then you would do the tracking.
Yeah. So you place the pins here. Usually it's better to start. I started with the wrong one, perhaps. Usually it's better to start with 3/4 view because it gives you information about the front of the face and the side of the face. So it's kind of, you have some depth in the photo. And on the first step of face building, you want to like give the rough, give the face build, give a chance to FaceBuilder to understand the dimensions of the object rather than the shape, because once you have the dimensions and the rough shape like that, then you can start pinning like small things and making the shape perfect. Because if you start with like dive into details right here on the first frame, then you can like FaceBuilder might use a lot of pins to estimate the scale of the model and the size, or instead of changing the shape, and it will be like compensating the shape changes with scale changes. So yeah, it's better to...
The first frame you should work on is a eye level 45 degree to the subject.
Yeah. First 1 or 2 frames.
And then then the next frame would be the facing. And
perhaps yes. Because face gives you like the frontal view gives you the good understanding of what's happening on the face. Because if you take the side view, you can like, there's not much happening on the face. Like you have just one eye and just half of the mouth, and it's important to have the side views as well, because you can like change chin and the shape of the lips and the shape of the nose, especially the nose, and it's all important. But yeah, it's better to start with 3/4, then perhaps then move to the frontal view. And in cases you like you have a model staying here like that, and you want to turn it around, you can either press center Geo button here. It doesn't like breaks anything. In FaceBuilder we work with all keyframes independently. So you either press the center Geo button, then you take the nose, and perhaps...
So if you're having a problem swinging the model around 180 degrees, you can just hit center Geo, and that'll get you more of a facing position.
You can do like that, but you can as well just rely on the smart I don't know, smartness of FaceBuilder, because if I perhaps move it like here, that's all you need to do, like a couple of like moves, and it's here. Yeah, so we have like the rough shape being set up in a couple of frames now, and we can go here and there to tweak everything, because when you add new views here and there, the model is changing. So if you return to old views, you can see it being a little bit offset. So it's like it's a kind of an iterative process. And then you move it here and here, and gradually, like in 10 or 15 minutes, you can get something like, let's see, something like this. It's the pins are screwed here because it was created in an old version. You can see the warning message here. Like everything will work with this model, but you cannot edit it. Like we keep the compatibility. We work on backwards compatibility to not break old scripts, because it's important for people to open old scripts and do something with them. So you can work with this model in FaceTracker later, but you just cannot fix it like here, but it still will work like it was working before. And yeah, at some point we have a model that will resemble this girl or another person you have on your photographs. Sometimes it's enough to have like 3 or 4 views. Sometimes you can go with 10 views. The bottom and the upper views give you some like good understanding of the shape of the nose and the skulls here. And yeah, but sometimes like it depends on what you need. If you want to just the head movement, if you want to track it with Geotracker, and you want to have movement, and you can either track it with the default shape, or you can get some rough shape and track it with it. If you want some precise facial tracking, then you perhaps want the precise model, because if something is like wrong here and there, it will be used in tracking, and it will like make the tracking less precise. And in the latest versions of FaceBuilder, we added, before that, we had only neutral facial expressions in FaceBuilder. So you needed to have neutral face expression, or you could like use your imagination to pin someone with a non-neutral expression. Like if the person's mouth was open, you had to think, if it would be closed, perhaps the lip should be somewhere here. But now you can use this checkbox here. It's non-neutral expressions, and then you can create models using non-neutral pictures. Like for example, this girl here. She's looking here and there, she sings. So we can perhaps let's start with this view here and close this pane so we can see everything more clear. And again, we create FaceBuilder. And we switch on the non-neutral expressions here. The camera, if I remember correctly, here was the 70 millimeters full frame something. And yeah, let's connect it here. And yeah, when you again press the center Geo button here, there's the nose, eyes. The first pin here, it's just moving the mesh across the frame, and it doesn't change anything except the position. The second frame pin, the second pin starts allows you to rotate the model, and the third pin starts changing the 3D rotation, and only the fourth pin is actually starting changing this shape and expression of the person. So we can perhaps fix her lips here and here and like that. So I can see the mouth is open now. So it's guessing, the FaceBuilder is guessing now not only the shape of the head, let's make it a little bit brighter, but also the expression.
So it's kind of built into the mesh that when you move the upper and lower lips separate, you create a little cavity there for the teeth.
No, there's no cavity. There's a, I can show it here. I will show it later with FaceTracker. But it's it's not a cavity. It's just polygons going from the upper lip to the bottom lip. But you can switch it off, all parts of the mesh. You can, it's a little bit weird shape now, but you can close your eyes. Maybe it will be a little bit more thick. A little bit better. But I don't know. Let's, yeah, you can switch on and off all different parts. Let's see them in 3D. You can switch on ears, you can switch on and off eyes, the facial part, like the scalp, which is called headback now, but it will be renamed soon. You can switch off the jaw,
So that's
the mouth.
That's if, say, you're only doing any sort of like compositing work for like maybe a gash on the forehead. You would only have that piece showing.
Yeah, you can, like, for example, we don't have any deformational data about the neck at the moment, so you can't incline head in any like direction. The neck is straight, is always straight right now at this moment, but we are working on it. So for example, in some cases you want to switch off neck, or you want to switch off ears to, for example, here we can see her ears, but sometimes ears are covered with hair and you don't see them, and you don't want to be confused, so just switch them off and work with the part that you can clearly see. And here we can see ears, and the neck here, it still can help us to get some dimensions, like for example here, so it will be a little bit better if we have neck still. And as you can see, we placed some pins here on this view, and the model here, it's something strange with the nose, but perhaps we can, yeah, we can make it a little bit.
Well, so far you've only used one image, so.
Yeah, exactly. I just used one image, so we don't have the preciseness, the true preciseness now. But it's some usually it's enough for tracking. So if you have a footage and you don't have reference photographs, like for example those pictures were taken like from the footage, like just screenshots of a video, and you can, for example, get a footage where someone sings or talks or is doing something with their face, and you can find the most neutral expression, pin the model in there, and then you starting with with facial expressions. You want to use it with facial expressions, and then you can export the FaceTracker node from the FaceBuilder node. And this FaceTracker node, let's perhaps, yeah, that's it with FaceBuilder. So let's jump into FaceTracker right now, and I'll show you one interesting example how you can track something using FaceBuilder and not having reference photos, because we are done with FaceBuilder. The next step would be to connect it either to Geotracker if you want to track just the head movement, or connect to FaceTracker if you want to track facial expressions. So yeah, let's jump to another script. So what we have here is this footage where guy is smiling and talking about something. And we have FaceBuilder with a couple of keyframes. One keyframe is being set up here, and one keyframe is being set up here, because it gives you a different, like here we can see one part of his head, and here we can see the other side, just a little bit, but that's enough. And then we can,
within 2 frames, you've managed to model something from raw footage and not even having access to reference of this actor. That's pretty.
Yeah, you can see it's even quite like similar to this guy in there, and it's just two keyframes, like this one and this one, and you already have this model here. And you can go to this result tab and export FaceTracker node. This FaceTracker node will have the same keyframes that you created in FaceBuilder. And one strange thing now is that it doesn't create pins. I think we will address this in future releases. We just didn't come up to a proper way of creating automatic pins, but I think we can just go with something like this, this, and this, and this. So you need to create a couple of pins to lock the positions of everything. And in FaceTracker, pins are shared on all keyframes. So you have one set of pins for all keyframes. In FaceBuilder, you have pins for like independent pins for every view, because it's another like job, and you need like different views. Here you want to use the same pins on every keyframe because you track with them. In Geotracker as well, you have one set of pins on all views. So we create a number of pins just to log the position of everything. Like maybe we can create pins here and here as well, just to let us later like to control it. And then we go to this FaceTracker here. I already created some pins here, and oh no, let's get back to that, and I'll show you how it like starts. We again export FaceTracker. For FaceTracker, like for Geotracker, you need to create this pre-calc file, so you can like enter some path and press Analyze button. Or if you've been working on one shot with Geotracker and FaceTracker, you can use one single pre-calc file because it's the same format, it's the same data. Maybe we will split this in later in our new releases, but for now it's just the same data, so you can have one pre-calc file for both Geotracker and FaceTracker. You can use GPU, it will significantly improve the speed of analysis process, but in the same time it makes it a little bit less precise. So it's kind of you can't notice it by your eyes perhaps, but mathematically it's a little bit less precise. So yeah, let's fix the mouth. Here jumps. Let's fix the eyes. With pins and whatever else in FaceTracker, Geotracker, and pin tool and all our nodes, you can use Command Z and Control Z to undo something and redo something. If you, for example, move something like that, you can press Control Z and it will be like restored. So yeah, let's fix it a little bit like that. So we have one keyframe here. We create pins. The keyframes were created with FaceBuilder. And now we can press the track button from here.
So you're using the points, the two reference frames from the FaceBuilder, and then one that you made in FaceTracker, and those three together you're using for the actual tracking.
Yes.
Okay. You kind of take advantage of those two other points that you set when you modeled the character.
No, FaceTracker doesn't use those points. We don't use these points, and FaceTracker and FaceBuilder and Geotracker, they don't use the picture at all. It's here only for your reference. Geotracker and FaceTracker, they use this pre-calc file. So you can even disconnect the BG input and press track, and it will track. The only difference here is that we have, I forgot to tell you about the magic keyframe feature in Geotracker. But let's talk about it later, maybe if we have time, because it's an interesting feature, but it's quite like it's doesn't always work like expected. So yeah, we have the same keyframe, we have tracked face, and you can abort the tracking like at any moment. The results won't be lost. You can, like, if you see the model is like going somewhere that like something's going wrong, you just press cancel and fix it by creating another keyframe. Then you press refine button. It will refine between this keyframe and this keyframe. Then it will refine between this keyframe and this keyframe. It happens when you refine from a keyframe that stands between two keyframes. If we didn't have this keyframe here, the refine process would be happen only here.
It ping pongs back and forth in between the keyframes.
Yeah. So it tracks backwards, forwards, backwards, and then it merges into tracking that data. And you can also press the refine all button here to refine between all keyframes if you have many of them. And refinement is basically the same. Is basically tracking just in two directions and with merging the results. So we already have the face tracked here, even though I stopped tracking somewhere here, and just refinement tracked everything here, and that's it. We have the talking head here that talks about something in 3D, allows moves, and
so somebody can be giving a line of dialogue, and you can still use this mesh to project, whatever you would need on it.
Yeah, and speaking about the projections, we have the texture builder. You can use Project 3D nodes. Like if you want to grab some texture, you can connect Project 3D node to this camera here and to the footage. And then you create apply material, take this material and use the FaceBuilder output. But in this case, you need, in this FaceBuilder here, we don't have this output geometry button pressed because it goes later to FaceTracker. But we exported the transform geo node that contains the transformations. And we can connect this geometry through transform geo node to this project 3 and here's something weird here. Yeah, we have keyframe here. From in FaceBuilder, we have this data from here, and we have this keyframe here. But for some reason it doesn't work well here. But here's another way to use this. We can do this with FaceTracker as well. Yeah, I've done it here. So it goes through FaceTracker, and FaceTracker has tracking data for like every frame. So the model is aligned to the footage in every frame. So let's see. FaceTracker. As we can see, I've added some keyframes here to fix something like this and this and there. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 keyframes for 233 frames. I think that should be okay. Sometimes you need less. But if there's some jerky movement, then perhaps you would need more. Yeah, and we have the position across all frames, and so we can project it properly in here in every frame. Yeah, and then of course you can use command render to export this texture to UV, project it into UV. Then you can apply something draw something here and then reapply this. For example, let's paint, or maybe just some text, and then we merge it with this, and then we apply this material again to the.
So you have one scanline render that's exporting UVs, and then you paint on the actual UV layout, and then you apply that again exactly. to the 3D mesh, and then you render it out through another scanline render in 3D.
The material applied to FaceTracker, and here we have it. On his face. And then we can, of course, again render it and merge it with the footage, and then it will appear in there. And here you can see smart vector used, and sometimes on this, let's see this UV again you can see some movement, like instability here. And what you can do is like use smart vector to stabilize it and to track something to this. Like smart vector are good on when the movement is really smooth and slow. And using the smart vector, you can track something here in the UV space because it's quite smooth here. Like it doesn't like move so radically here and there. And you can track something here, add something here with smart vectors, using smart vectors because they work well with this kind of movement. And it will be really stable if you use smart vector, because right now if you project it back, then you can see this text here. It will be moving a little bit because the UV is not really stable at this point.
So you stabilize the UVs by baking out a set of smart vectors?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's like the best possible approach in Nuke and FaceTracker when you want to modify the texture of some object, especially if the object is like deforming. Like if you have like rigid model and you tracked it with Geotracker, then it would be perhaps quite stable. The UV would be quite stable. But if the object is morphing, like the face, then of course you perhaps will need the smart vectors to stabilize it. And perhaps that's it. That's it with FaceTracker. And here we can perhaps I can tell you about another feature of which is called Magic Keyframe. Again, we have this Fox model here. We have this footage, and we create Geotracker. Connect the geometry, connect the background and the camera. And in the in the cool bright future, all we need to do is press this Magic Keyframe button. So you just choose the keyframe, like the first frame, and press this button here. And what it does, it tries to find the position, of this object in the frame. So that's interesting. Let's see. Maybe if we connect it like that, and if we set at least one keyframe manually, this feature, like this Magic Keyframe thing, it becomes better with when you have more keyframes. So if, for example, we set up one keyframe here, and we want to fix it here, let's try. Will it work now? Yeah, as you can see, it has worked. So I think the problem is that it doesn't have any keyframes. Yeah, I think we will fix that. It looks like an easy fix. So yeah, the ideal tracking process would look like something like pressing this Magic Keyframe button, then the model is snapped to the position, and then you press track button. Let's press the track button. Yeah, let's just press the track. It tracks, and yeah, and especially consider it, I'm streaming my screen now. Yeah, now it has lost the position a little bit, so we press this Magic Keyframe button. It guesses the position. It feeds it. Maybe we can adjust it a little bit. Then we press Refine button. It makes the refinement. Yeah, then we track further. And perhaps here we can see that it's off again. We press Magic Keyframe again. It snaps. Now it's perfectly snapped. We press Refine again. And that's it. Yeah, like we have set up just the first keyframe, Then we made second keyframe with magic keyframe button, refined everything. Then we made third keyframe with magic keyframe button again. It was perfect, and like we can as well finish the tracking here. And that now it's done. I haven't told you about the texture builder. It's an experimental node that tries to be better than Project 3D. We see this texture here, and we can make it. Yeah, there's a little interesting hack in the. Oh no, if you see that the texture is a little bit like too smooth or like blurred, you can go to the settings of Nuke, into the viewer settings, and change the texture size, because the default is this 512, and if you set it to 2000 2K, it will be much better here in the viewer. Like in skyline render and in the pipe, it will be like the full texture, but sometimes usually you want to see it better in your viewer as well. So yeah, we have the UV here. We have the applied texture here, like on FaceTracker. It's being grabbed using Project 3D, then it applied to the model of FaceTracker. Then in the scanline render, we have rendered UV using this projection mode UV. We've got UV. Then we can add something using merge node or rotapaint or whatever else node, attach something that you want to attach to this texture here in this UV, and then you just reapply this using apply material. You just reapply it to your model again, like from FaceTracker or Geotracker, KeenTool, or whatever else. Like, just keep in mind that you need the UV being present in your model.
Okay, so we have from Cobblesticks, what is the method to start with Geotracker? Do you need a match move camera to the whole scene? I think we answered that one. Or if tracking in Nuke, do you need to get the camera tracker to track two objects somehow? That we demonstrated. Can Geotracker deform Geo somehow or only for rigid objects? We figured that out. And then FaceTracker and FaceBuilder are amazing, great work. I hope you continue to develop them and have better control for localized points. Thank you. Najordi Jovanovic says, question, how the blank is the weather out there in St. Petersburg?
Well, I can answer that, I think. It's cool, but cold. Yeah, lately St. Petersburg is not like St. Petersburg. It's more like, it's too sunny for St. Petersburg, because usually we have overcast through all the year. And recent years, like 3 or 4 years, I don't know, maybe it's global warming, but we have sun most of the time. It's like, it's cool.
I'm near Chicago and we have overcast all the time. They film movies here just because it's overcast all the time. Like bleakness or whatever. Shahid Gear says, if I have a organic object in my footage, can I track organic movement with Geotracker? Assuming that's correct.
Yeah, you can. Like, it will be difficult with an organic model, like because they morph quite easily, and Geotracker can track models with skeletons. You can use Retrig Geo node to import models with skeletons into Nuke pipeline. But if you have many bones, like even in this my finger, like you have one bone here, and it's like, and it can bend here and here, like it's quite flexible. It will be difficult to track still, but we know that some people at some studios are tracking even the entire human bodies with Geotracker. And I don't know how much time they spend on setting up their constraints on their models, but you can, when you import the model with skeleton using Retrig Geo into a new pipeline, you can set up the constraints, you can see all the bones, you can modify them in 3D space or 2D space. No, not 2D space. With Retrig Geo, you can modify them only in 3D space. But when you connect it to Geotracker, you can later modify it in 2D space as well, like using those pins. You can rotate it, tweak it here and there. But before doing that, you want to set up constraints because you don't want like your bones rotating in all possible direction because it will be impossible to manipulate. And then of course you can track it, but so it depends. If it's like a simple organic something like with a simple skeleton with like a couple of bones, it will work. But when it's like you need a proper model with a proper skeleton and proper constraints.
Well, thank you, Artyom, for the demonstration today. For anybody that's interested, I have links at the bottom to KeenTools, and I believe you guys have the ability. I think they do have a couple's day demo for those if people want to try out the actual.
Yeah, we have 30 days. You can test everything for 30 days. You don't need to register anywhere. You don't need to enter your credit cards or anything. You just download, install it, and use it for 30 days without any limitations, like at all. Like it's totally like fully functional. You can use it and try it, and you can even use the results you've got with a trial version. So yeah, just go and test it for yourself and see if it works.
These are awesome plugins, and they're used widely in the industry. So please check them out. And definitely, if you're in production, they're definitely worth the investment since there's so much work that's done in compositing for tracking. Also, for those of you that are out there that have Blender, and there's so many different reasons to build a model, obviously, of a head. Even down to someone as a simple gamer that wants to make a model of themselves. This is a great tool. So definitely check out the links at the bottom. And I think with that said, all I can say is I got to head off the class. But thanks, Artyom, for sharing all this information with us. And
thank you for having me today. Yeah.